Business Morning on Channels Television, and we're broadcasting live from Lagos, Nigeria. On the program today, we're looking at how the real sector, what the role the real sector can play in actually forging inclusive growth and creating jobs, which we know is a theme for this year's World Economic Forum Africa. It's happening here in Nigeria. It's going to be taking place from the 7th to the 9th of May in the Federal Capital Territory, and it is the 25th edition of the meeting here in Africa. Well, as I said, we're talking about the role of the rail sector in forging inclusive growth and creating jobs, and I've been having a conversation with the Managing Director, Coleman Wires and Cables. He's also an industrialist, Mr. George Onofowoko. He's still here with me in the studio. Thank you so much for sticking around.
Thank you, Alex.
Well, just before we went on that quick break, I said we got some tweets from our viewers, and let's quickly take one. He says, oh, I beg your pardon, I think I've mixed it up. But we'll get back to it. Let's get back to this conversation now. When we went on that quick break, we were talking about how the private sector can help in ensuring that the real sector grows. But then you have issues of interest rates, for instance, when somebody wants to take a loan, like a micro small business wanting to take a loan. How can, or in what ways can the private sector work to ensure that giving these loans is not, you're not doing a charity business, that's for certain. But how can they give these loans in such a way that the interest rate isn't as high as what they would normally get if they go to the banks? Because right now we know the banks are giving between 25 to 28% interest. And the Bank of Industry tries to give between 9 and 13%, as well as the CBN as well, when they do give us these loans. But then we have some private individuals who actually want to, front a business, but as I said, they're not in it for charity. They want to make a profit as well. So how can they actually work to help?
I think it's difficult to ask the commercial banks to do anything without a subsidy from the bank, from the government itself, because at the end of the day, they're sitting on shareholders' funds. They're also sitting on the funds that deposit funds, and I'm sure you would not want your deposit coming back with empty figures. No. So that makes that difficult. For the Bank of Industry interest rate today is about 10. It says 10.5 if you're taking it from them. Now, their job is to facilitate machinery of industry growth. I think for them, they're not figure dependent. It is the viability of the business. The only problem with that is that they still insist on this collateral process, which gives us a problem. Now, not everybody has collateral. A lot of people don't have collateral. Now, we have some banks that have created these ideas of bring your business plan. One or two commercial banks are doing those type of ideas where you bring your business plan, take it there, and even if they don't have a collateral, they'll manage the collateral with what you're bringing in, with what they're giving you to start up the business. Now, those are happening. I think we might need to get the government to get involved with things like that.
But if, for instance, a private investor decides that they want to pursue this path, they want to take up this role, they want to find avenues to invest their money, and they don't necessarily want to have to go through a bank, a commercial bank of any sort. They want to fund it by themselves.
Okay.
Just as an investment venture. Can't they do it?
It is. They can. That's the easiest one. It's their money.
Exactly. But then in their wanting to do that, to achieve this thing that we've been talking about in the last couple of minutes, to ensure that we have more jobs, being created, we have inclusive growth as well. Might they be toying with the idea of doing it, and probably toying with the idea of giving at a lower interest rate from what is actually obtainable in commercial banks? Yeah,
it is possible. I think that's been done and proven that it's possible with the CBN BOI intervention fund that has been happening in the last 4 or 5 years. Now, the thing you are just telling us is that we need to, which I too totally support, is the intervention must continue. The government must not go to sleep with intervention. So if someone gets it at 7%, if I have got it today, I'm sure everybody else wants 7%. And everybody else that got it, others also want it. Now, the key thing is yes, we agree. I totally support that ideology that the intervention has to continue. We need to get the government, if they want this industry or this real sector to grow, they have to continue to look at lowering those interest rates. So if you can lower those interest rates, I'm sure people will expand more. Now, the reality, and let's be fair, today, irrespective, there's a lot of real sector development, even if we look at between Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the end of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. There's a lot of factories going up. There's a lot of factories coming up. We are lucky. I always say that I think the best statistics to get from, apart from the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, really is the cable industry. Because the cable industry deals with everybody. If you like, you want a small store, you want to put a light there, you have to have a cable. So we actually can see the trajectory of whether the economy is doing well or is doing badly. To be sincere, today I'll say the economy is doing well because we have seen more real sector growth than I've seen in the last 10 years, in the last 2. Now, and because you're now seeing Nigerians building very big factories. Factories, normally you only see foreigners building.
But then even with this growth, we're still having issues coming up from, especially those people who are in the value chain. They're still complaining that they still have issues as regards getting and funding their business.
That would always be. But the fact is, I think the biggest fear of everybody when it comes to lending any Nigerian is our culture. But I think irrespective of the culture of handling money, I think we're having Nigerians that are growing from small scale to large scale now. But those are the key, is how to sustain those Nigerians that are doing those things to create the chain of their supply. Now, how do we get the small guys to be their suppliers? Now, how do we start them off? Now, if they have an LPO or an order from the guy or a company, I'm sure they'll get financing. Now, but it's how do we get those people to get involved in production that gets them into it? Now, the methodology of that is quite straightforward. We need to encourage people to get skills. A lot of people don't have skills. Everybody wants, and education really is the key to the youth. Nigeria has a massive youth population, which really is a labor force on its own. Now, but we can't continue to send everybody to university to become a white-collared worker. It's not possible. Some people need to be the blue-collared workers. Now, we're losing that majorly. I think that, to me, is the biggest setback we're having between this whole real sector growth that we're looking for.
Yeah, because sometimes you see a lot of companies, they want to do something very minor. They have to go to neighboring countries to get artisans and masons and the rest of it to come and do this. When we have a very large workforce here.
we have a large workforce, but everybody is studying accounting and studying law and studying
that now also,
so who is left to go and do the...
So why is it that, when we have a situation, why can't, investors, private investors, just, maybe that's what I've been trying to, get at since we started this conversation. Why can't they just start something that will ensure that, look, I want this particular kind of skill. Why don't I have a section of my business that will deal specifically with that? And then I now make it, seem like a business. So if you have staff you want to employ, you want to put in this particular section, okay, this is what I do. You can send them to me for training, and then everybody has a win-win situation on their plate.
Yeah, but then this is where you keep that point that you raised. What does the government enable? How does the government enable the private sector to? You don't want them in business, but you want them enabling. Now, that part really, as much as it is, some businesses, some of us do that. You are training now, but you cannot train enough to even feed your system. If we look at today, I'm even struggling to get workers, especially on the skilled end. So you're talking plumbers, fitters, mechanical guys, electrical with electronics. It's very difficult to get them. Nowadays, it used to be very easy. I'll say 5-10 years ago. Today, you are not getting those skilled hands. And really, that's the area of expertise that you find out a lot of people, even operators with some skill. Now, but you have schools like, there's one close by here, IITT, Industrial Training, and they're only graduating 80, and the 80, everybody wants them. And these guys go out of school, they don't go to uni, they spend 2 years here. And in 2 years, I believe they have more knowledge than even some people that have gone to uni, because they actually have 2 years of practical knowledge with 1 year of training in any industry. Now, those guys are highly sought after, but they only graduate in 80 a year.
So why aren't people going to such schools?
Now, that is the problem. Everybody wants to wear these white collars. Now, but we having situations where we're trying to get people to get into those fields. Now we're taking from those that IT in the institute. Now, but we find out that even they have a wait list. I'm shocked that they have a wait list, but they graduated only 80.
Okay, so now that, because I'm very sure not a lot of people even knew this, but now that we have this piece of information, what should we be doing? What should youths be doing? Because you see, as much as possible, the federal government is determined, and we've seen that in most of the policies that they're coming up with to ensure that there's at least job creation and, as much as possible, inclusive growth. Institutes like this one, they're not, they're there, but nobody really is talking about it. Who should be talking about it?
I think places like IIT should be talked about by the government themselves. They should be pushing more people. They should see how they can expand those type of institutes. We have technical colleges in Nigeria, that no doubt, but the encouragement to go to technical college is no more there like it used to be. Now, nobody wants to be a methodology fitter or welder, but they are very skilled hands that are doing very well in those industries. Now, we need those guys to go into those type of fields to be able to rebalance even the skilled hands we're creating in this country today. You have people training these guys. I have fitters that are trained, well trained, but they become like a very few exclusive people when you train them, because now everybody wants the same guy. But we need to create a lot more. And you're seeing that situation happening in the real sector. Now, the real sector cannot work without people to operate it. All of us are not going to be the boss. All of us are not going to be the entrepreneurs. Even for the guy that sets up a small cottage industry, he needs people to train to actually run this industry. So a lot of focus of the government needs to move away. I saw in the budget 400, the biggest budget we have every year is education. This year again is over 400 billion. Now, where's that money going to? Now, we need to refocus and rechannel a lot of that money into creating skilled hands.
Technical colleges
Technical colleges. Now, technical colleges that have infrastructure, they have equipment, they have the base for what they're training them to do. Not the books and not the internet access. We all have that. What we need is that they should understand the practicalities of running those things that they've been taught. So we need to refocus this education fund into the real sector. And for the real sector to gain majority out of it, we need to refocus it into the technical sector. So you have, even in agriculture, you have technical colleges in agriculture. You have those in every area we do have. But if we don't have skilled hands to even deal with it, how do we run these businesses?
Okay, so sorry to cut you there, but we're completely out of time. This sector definitely has a lot to do. It has a lot to position itself for, so that we can begin to tap into the opportunities of the potential business that will come from this forum that's going to be happening next month.
I believe so. I think for Nigeria, at least we're all happy that we have it. And I think it's a big encouragement that things like the World Economic Forum, for Africa comes to Nigeria, and we need to see those type of forums. And I think that would ginger our economy, ginger our government, ginger the private sector to look deep into what we're doing and do more for the future.
Well, George, thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
It's been
an interesting conversation. And thank you so much also for joining us on the program this morning. And our conversation has been on the role of the real sector in forging inclusive growth and creating jobs. And of course, most of what has been said are things that most industrialists have actually been talking about. And now that the World Economic Forum is actually on Africa is actually going to be happening, more and more of these discussions are going to be coming up. And so you can also join most of these conversations and here on Channels Television, because of course you know that the conversation continues well after the program. But that's today's edition of the program. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Harriet Agbeni.